Postmortem photography, also known as memorial portrait or mourning portrait, is the practice of photographing recently deceased people. The photography continued the old tradition of mourning portraits and death masks. If you were to take a picture of a corpse at a funeral today, you would probably earn weird looks, but exactly that was an extremely popular thing to do in Victorian England. The invention of the daguerreotype photography in 1839 opened up new options for the people of the lower and middle class. Daguerreotypes were small but highly detailed pictures on a copper plate covered with polished silver. Although these pictures were not cheap at the beginning, it was more affordable than a painted portrait. Mostly the social class could not afford a painter, so this quicker and cheaper way of capturing people and objects sparked the urge of postmortem pictures. Before the invention of the daguerreotype photography, the world of postmortem portraits was only open to the upper class. This type of photography gained on popularity within the 19th century and was a very common practice. With photography being newly invented back then, most postmortem pictures were the only pictures ever taken of deceased ones. Photographing dead people was easy since the long exposure time required the photographed person to remain still. Exposure time at the beginning were around 1.5 minutes and decreased rapidly over time. Around 1850, the exposure time has already sunken to around 8 seconds. Since even the exposure time of 1 second was enough to make a picture blurry, it was a common effect that the dead person on a postmortem picture appeared more sharp than those standing next to them. And by the way, it was pretty common for family members to pose with the deceased one. Photographers would also draw on the eyes as if they were open onto the picture for a more realistic look. Photography was invented in the right time, as death in the 19th century was everywhere. Urbanization and industrialization led to increased pollution and overcrowded cities. All this combined with poor knowledge of hygiene led to illnesses such as cholera, typhoid, and scarlet fever, which resulted in a high mortality. As everyone wanted to keep their loved ones in the picture, photo studios were blooming and postmortem pictures provided the staple for many photographers. As the number of photographers increased, the cost of daguerreotypes fell. Less costly procedures were introduced in the 1850s, such as using thin metal, glass, or paper rather than silver. With the invention of the CDV photographs, also known as carte de visite, people were now able to get multiple copies of a picture out of one negative, meaning that the postmortem pictures could now also be sent out to family members. Technology evolved during time, and at the beginning of the 20th century, cameras became more accessible and people started taking photographs of themselves. That meant that most people already had pictures of their family members, and postmortem pictures lost on popularity. Today, postmortem pictures are mostly used only in police work or pathology work.